Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. A special breaking news edition of Texans Today as the Texans have traded for star wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills, Stefon Diggs. I mean, the news came across the office, and the whole office just did a wave of, oh my goodness, I can't believe this trade just happened. It has been so quiet the past couple days, and then the Texans just come out and do a move like this, getting a star receiver, another weapon for CJ Stroud in this offense. I simply got to ask everybody at home, what's your one-word reaction to the trade? I think Cullen, my producer, can attest to this. My one-word reaction was, I didn't know what to say. I did not know what to say when the Texans decided to go up and make this trade. I didn't think that they were going to make a move. I thought maybe T. Higgins, maybe a move like that later down the line. Closer we were getting to the draft, the closer I was thinking maybe they don't make a move. But Cullen, they went ahead and made a move.
They made the move.
They made the move of the offseason. They got Danielle Hunter. Now they got Stefon Diggs. Two guys who are all pro guys, who are Pro Bowler guys, who are going to immediately upgrade the positions of edge and wide receiver. I mean, this is Nick Caserio. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Nick Caserio. Oh, my goodness.
Dude,
I can't believe it.
What a blockbuster, man. I mean, you said it best. The Texans realized what they had in CJ Stroud after arguably the best rookie season by a quarterback, at least in recent memory. They go out and get a true number one wide receiver to pair with him for the future.
Oh.
I mean, what more can you ask for?
Touchdown edit says dude. Little Jesus says dog. Rheosaurus says them. Boberson says woohoo. Tank B. Wilden says why? Why? You get another star receiver for CJ Stroud to pair with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And I'll tell you the trade details coming up. Actually, let's go ahead and pull up the trade details for the ladies and gentlemen out there on YouTube. This is what the Texans gave up for Stefon Diggs. And I'm telling you, it's not a lot.
It's not.
They get Stefon Diggs. They also get a 2025 fifth-round pick, a 2025 sixth-round pick, and the Bills get not a 2024, a 2025 second-round pick, and it's not even the Texans' pick. It's the pick of the Minnesota Vikings, which now, looking at the landscape of things, might be a better second-round pick going into next year than the Texans' pick. But, I mean, for what you thought you were going to have to give up for Stefon Diggs, this is absolutely a steal, in my opinion. 2024 sixth-round pick.
2024. Gotcha.
2024 sixth-round pick.
That.
Thank you, executive producer Brett Scott. He is keeping us honest here on the program. Sorry, we wanted to go live so quick. I am so excited for this trade. There we go, on the fly. Cullen, that's why he's the best on the business on the ones and twos. A 2024 sixth-round pick. So the Texans add another pick this year. 2025 fifth-round pick, and Stefon Diggs for a 2025 second-round pick. I mean, unbelievable trade. I can't believe Nick Caserio pulled this kind of trade off. When I was doing trade videos earlier this offseason, and I told you all guys, hey, we could trade a third-round pick for Stefon Diggs, people called me crazy. And now we look at this trade, a 2025 second-round pick compared to a third-round pick this year. I mean, pretty comparable value if you ask me.
Yeah, no, this is definitely something that, honestly, I mean, what is the price for a true number one wide receiver nowadays? I mean, it's something where you get, obviously, compensation in the back end. So if something were to happen, I mean, you're not totally fleeced. And a second-round pick, that's something that, I mean, the Texans, let's face it, I mean, they're trying to cash in now. I mean, draft picks that are ultimately going to pay in maybe 2-3 years down the line, they don't have time for that. They got CJ Stroud on that rookie deal. Their time is now. They need to capitalize on this moment, and
this is your Super Bowl window. This is when you go for the crown. This is when you go for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs right now, while you can pay all these other guys while you're not paying CJ Stroud. Now, obviously, I told you we have Tank Dell, Nico Collins, now Stefon Diggs. You add Joe Mixon into the mix as well. Mix, you see what I did there? Let me know. How would you rate this Texans offense going into the next season? Scale it 1 to 100. 100, it's the best offense in the entire National Football League. 1, it is absolutely trash. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. I think anything below an 85 would be blasphemous. I think it's. Yeah. I would give it probably a 92, 93.
I mean, dude, like it. I mean, seriously, in pure Madden style, like, I mean, if it's not an A, if it's not at least a 90, like, what are you doing?
I mean, I don't even know if this trade goes through in Madden. If you tried to do Stefon Diggs for a 2025 second-round pick and you get a 5th-round pick next year and a 6th-round pick this year, I don't even know. Madden would probably say, hey, you need to add a ton more picks to make this a viable trade. I mean, absolutely insane. I see Gunner says 101. Tank B. Wilden says 1,000. Tanner Tross says 100. 93 from Allen. Boberson says 95. Antoine says 89. Dave Jones says 95. I mean, I'd have to agree. Anything below an 85, you just don't know ball. You just don't know ball. You have one of the best, most promising quarterbacks in CJ Stroud going into next season, and then you had a prolific wide receiver in Stefon Diggs to go along with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. You brought back Dalton Schultz. The offensive line, even though it hurt last year, has some pieces. You have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. Titus Howard hopefully coming back at right tackle. I mean, this Texans offense looks absolutely insane going into next season.
Yeah, and Jeremy, I've done plenty of videos with you. I mean, we've done it where we've done mock drafts where you're talking about, top 30 visits and everything, about the Texans maybe trying to target like a third wide receiver to pair with Tank Dell and, Nico Collins. They've got more than that. They've got their true now number one wide receiver to build this team around, to really lead this team. And I mean, Stefon Diggs has been in some big games over the years. I mean, AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. He's been in multiple deep playoff runs. He knows what it takes to win. This is something the Texans needed. Just a guy that is going to be a true culture setter in Stefon Diggs, a true winner. They get there, man. It's just incredible.
Nick Caserio, do your thing. Do your thing, young man. I mean, an absolute steal by the Houston Texans. And I want to hear from you folks at home. So there's two ways for you to do it. You can either use #Texans to get on the show. Producer Cullen, that makes it easier for him to find your comments. And also, you want to skip the line. If you want to help donate to the show, help keep the lights on here at Texans Today, you can super chat to skip the line. We'll immediately put your question up on the program. I want to hear from you folks at home and let me know, what are your thoughts on the trade? Because, I mean, this is – I can't think of a better case scenario than the Texans giving up that for Stefon Diggs for a third wide receiver. I mean –
it's incredible. And the fact that, you retain Bobby Slowick, so you have that continuity with him and Stroud. Now you add a dynamic, versatile weapon in Stefon Diggs to go along with Nico Collins, who's more of your big body guy. You've got Tank Dell, who's more of your explosive, kind of now can work more in the slot with Stefon Diggs being on the outside. I mean, and you add Joe Mixon. Like, you mentioned the work that they did on the offensive line. Like, this Texans offense, Dalton Schultz, too. Like, we almost forget about him. He could be potentially your fourth option in some cases.
Yeah.
Like, this Texans offense is explosive. Good Lord.
I mean, absolutely insane. Now, before we get started on the cut, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about the trade for Stefon Diggs, letting you know the contract or the trade details once again, letting you know what the Texans are getting in Stefon Diggs. I need one thing and one thing only from everybody at home. If you're excited about this trade, if you're pumped up about Houston Texans football right now, go down and like the video. We got about 250 rowdy Texans fans in the chat right now. Only 43 likes. Can we bump those numbers up? And then we'll get into the cut around Stefon Diggs, breaking down everything you need to know about the former Bills wide receiver.
Crazy to say that out loud.
I mean,
crazy to say that out loud.
Does this make up for the DeAndre Hopkins trade? Does this kind of, I mean, I know totally different regime, totally different people making the deals. Bill O'Brien, Mr. Butchin. Sorry to bring you up again, but yeah, I think this somewhat, repents for the Texans' former sins at wide receiver trades.
I agree. No, I think Texans fans deserve this. I mean, they have been through an absolute ringer of a past decade, you could argue, and the fact that they're now really on the come up, they've got arguably the best young quarterback in the game. You just traded for Stefon Diggs. You're signing guys like Danielle Hunter. I mean, it's looking great for the Texans. Like, it is. I mean, who's got it better than the Texans fans right now? I mean, seriously.
I mean,
who's got it better?
Hard pressed to find anybody who would say Texans aren't in the top 5 or even top 3, top 4 of the AFC right now in terms of contender.
And that's the question I kind of want to ask you too, because if you think about the AFC hierarchy, obviously you've got the Chiefs. They're the reigning dynasty. I mean, they're looking to try to three-peat this year. Outside of them, I mean, how many teams would you really put realistically ahead of the Texans with this roster, this coaching staff returning with DeMeco Ryans, Bobby Slowick? You got CJ Stroud, maybe potentially making another jump in year 2. You just added Stefon Diggs. I mean, do you have anybody higher than the Texans? I mean, seriously.
No. Hard pressed to find anybody besides the Chiefs that I have over the Texans in the AFC right now, only because they have one whose name is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, the one who shall not be named.
Yeah, one who shall not be named. I think we're ready to get into this cut real quick. Let y'all know everything you need to know about the Houston Texans. Then I'm going to take all of your questions around Stefon Diggs, around the Texans, around what they're going to do moving forward in free agency in the draft. Remember, use hashtag Texans. Just like Allen did, use hashtag Texans and ask your question. Or if you want to super chat and skip the line, there's a little rectangle with a dollar symbol. You can click on that. You'll skip the line, and we'll put your question right up here on board. Cullen, ready to go? All right, let's do it. Let's break down this Stefon Diggs trade to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans have traded for Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremy Chuggs here on Texans Today. We're going to be breaking down the entire trade details around Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans, what that means for the Texans going through the draft, going through free agency. What are the Texans getting in Stefon Diggs? I'll let you know everything you need to know coming up on today's video. Here it is right here, the trade for Stefon Diggs. The Texans get Stefon Diggs, a 2025 fifth-round pick, and a 2024 sixth-round pick. The Bills are receiving a 2025 second-round pick, not their own, the one they got for trading back with the Minnesota Vikings. So it kind of puts that trade a little bit more into perspective of them trading back out of the first round. Or now if I told you, if you could trade back into the second round and get Stefon Diggs, I think that's a win, in my opinion. I absolutely love this trade for the Houston Texans. They're not really losing draft capital. They still get a fifth-round pick in 2025, so they still are adding on more picks than what they already have in the 2025 NFL Draft. And they're adding another 2024 sixth-round pick along in the process. And DeMeco Ryans has already said he loves the depth in this draft. He thinks rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, he can still find players that can help this team, help the Texans win right now. So I trust this team. I trust their drafting ability so far. They found a lot of really good players last year in the draft, a la CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, both of the rookies of the year. Also, Tank Dell, who is one of the best ascending wide receivers in the National Football League. I absolutely love this trade for the Houston Texans. And I'm going to be breaking down more about Stefon Diggs, more about this trade. But this right here is why you hit that sub button. When the Texans make a move, we break it down here on the channel. We were the first Texans channel to go live after the Stefon Diggs news broke. We are here to bring you the best Texans content on the internet. So if you want a free, let me say that again, a free way to enjoy the Houston Texans, to enjoy Texans content, go down and hit that sub button to the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. We're trying to get to 13,000 subscribers. Don't do it for me. Do it for TJ Yates, the Yates of hell. Do it for him. Go down and hit that sub button. And, going along with the Stefon Diggs news, they had been rumored to be in on Keenan Allen before. They had been rumored to possibly be in on T. Higgins. Also, Stefon Diggs, they had been in discussions with the Bills per reports throughout this offseason. They were looking to add another established wide receiver to this wide receiver group, and that is exactly what you're getting with Stefon Diggs. His stats over the past 4 seasons, absolutely incredible. Last year, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns on 107 receptions. 2022, over 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. In 2021, over 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. The dude is an absolute machine. And yes, he's been with Josh Allen, but now he's going with another talented quarterback with CJ Stroud, who can probably get, if not the same, even more out of Stefon Diggs going into next season. And now we look at this Texans wide receiver room with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stefon Diggs. This is a scary trio right here. This is a scary trio for the National Football League. I think it rivals almost any other wide receiver core in the NFL. Nico Collins, over 1,200 yards last year, 8 touchdowns. Tank Dell, 700 yards, 7 touchdowns in a rookie season where he was out a third of the year. And then you add Stefon Diggs to that unit. Now, for this Texans depth chart, I don't know who's 1, 2, or 3. I don't think it even really matters. It's just these are your top 3 guys that are going to be on the field with CJ Stroud. Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They re-signed Noah Brown this offseason. They have John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson Robert Woods, I don't know if he really makes it through OTAs and preseason now that they traded for Stefon Diggs. But wow, the Texans absolutely get a real one in Stefon Diggs. Now, obviously, he had been complaining about the Bills organization, his relationship with the front office, tumultuous, kind of similar things that you kind of see in his career going back to the Minnesota Vikings. So it does worry me just a tad bit, just a little bit about Stefon Diggs and how he fits in the locker room. But I really trust CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans to really take control of this locker room and get the most out of a guy like Stefon Diggs. Now, you see the trade. We've broken down the trade a little bit. Let me know. What would you grade this trade for the Houston Texans? Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. We're live here on Texans Today, and the live poll right now, with over 350 votes, 85% are saying this is an A trade for the Houston Texans. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. How would you grade this trade for the Houston Texans? A, B, C, D, or F? I got to give this trade an A. I mean, you're giving up a 2025 second-round pick that you acquired by trading back in the draft. And I mentioned before that you traded out of the first round. But if I told you you could trade back into the second round, but also acquire Stefon Diggs in the process, I mean, I'm doing that every single time. I mean, yes, obviously there's a lot of good wide receivers in the draft this year, but it's also somewhat of a crapshoot. You don't know that these guys are going to 100% pan out. You know what you're getting in Stefon Diggs. You're getting a Pro Bowl receiver, somebody who has competed at the highest level, been a top 10 receiver for the past couple of seasons in the National Football League, to pair with young up-and-comers like a Tank Dell, like a Nico Collins. So, I mean, I would be hard-pressed to give the Texans anything other than an A for this trade. Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. I mean, what more are you telling your team? What more are you telling your fan base other than we're going for a Super Bowl this year when you make moves like this, when you sign Danielle Hunter, when you trade for Joe Mixon? This is Nick Caserio, this is DeMeco Ryans telling Texans fans we are going for it all this season. It's Super Bowl or bust for the Houston Texans. And I'll break down more about this trade, more about Stefon Diggs in just a moment, but couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our wonderful sponsors over at Game Time. Let me tell you about Game Time a little bit. Where are my baseball fans at? I know we're talking Texans football, but I know I got some Astros fans in the chat. The season just set off, and if you're trying to catch a game, the easiest way to score last-second tickets is with our sponsor, Game Time. You can get great deals on last-second tickets and even see the seat view before you buy the tickets. All-in prices show you what you pay without hidden fees or expenses, and Game Time has zone deals. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats for an average savings of 18%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Now, Stefon Diggs, the newest Houston Texan. I mean, he's under contract through 2027. He turns 31 years old in November. I get all of those things, but also when you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things, he's only guaranteed $3.51 million after 2024. So I know the contract looks scary. I get, he's 31 years old already. We've seen wide receivers in their early 30s still produce in the National Football League. And once again, he's only guaranteed $3.5 million past 2024. So his contract is somewhat easy to get out of if you're the Houston Texans. And you have control for Stefon Diggs through 2027. And I mean, what better piece to add on top, a little cherry on top to this Texans offense other than Stefon Diggs? Because you're bringing him in and you're not expecting him to be a wide receiver one and carry the wide receiver room. You already have guys like Nico Collins. You have a guy like Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, who are reliable pass catchers already for CJ Stroud. So you're not saying, Stefon Diggs, we need you to come in and save us. We're saying, Stefon Diggs, we want to add you to the super team, and let's get this thing rolling. Now, this tweet came in from Jason OTC. The Bills will carry about $31.1 million in dead money for Diggs. Pretty much a disaster extension for them. Wound up paying an extra $20.9 million in 2022 and 2023 to come away with a net of less than a second rounder next year. And that's why I'm saying that's an A-plus trade for the Houston Texans. They absolutely fleeced the Bills. I get it. Stefon Diggs and the Bills organization had a tumultuous relationship. They had a back and forth where it wasn't very conducive for them moving forward. But still, you trade a guy like Stefon Diggs for pennies on the dollar. Bad look for the Buffalo Bills. But I mean, thank God for the Houston Texans. Am I right? And now we look at the Texans offense going into next season. CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, Stefon Diggs, Nathaniel Dell, Dalton Schultz. You add in Nico Collins into that. This offense is a top 5 offense in the league. Am I wrong? I don't think so. You add this Texans offensive line that played pretty well last season. I mean, this is a scary sight for defensive coordinators around the National Football League. And like I said, Nick Caserio, DeMeco Ryans, they're looking you straight in the eyes. They're telling Texans fans right now, with all of these additions that they had this offseason, we're going for it all. We're going for a Super Bowl. We believe CJ Stroud is our guy. He is the franchise CJ7 CJ Stroud. Yeah, and we're going to build the best possible team we can around him. No matter what you have to do, no matter what it takes, we are going to wheel and deal this offseason and make this team a juggernaut team in the AFC. You went ahead and you added Joe Mixon. Maybe one of your sneaky biggest holes coming in from last year was the running back spot. You had Devin Singletary, but you didn't really – you saw in that Ravens game, the running backs, the running game that you had last year was not it. Now you have a guy who can really, really help this Texans offense, especially in short yardage situations. You add Joe Mixon. You trade for Stefon Diggs, adding to a really good wide receiver core already. I mean, if you didn't add a wide receiver either in free agency or the draft, I don't think the Texans would have been too bad off with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Noah Brown. I don't think it would have been the worst wide receiver room in the NFL, but now you add Stefon Diggs, and now it becomes a top 5 unit in the National Football League. You add Danielle Hunter to go on with an ascending superstar and Will Anderson at the other edge rusher spot. Not only Danielle Hunter is going to help take a little bit of pressure off of Will Anderson, he's also going to be there to mentor Will Anderson, help him along the way, help him, give him a little bit of the tricks of the trade, and help him develop as an edge rusher. You add Denico Autry, maybe one of the more sneaky ads in free agency this offseason. But even with Denico Autry, I like him as a defensive tackle. I think he's a really good pickup by the Houston Texans. They're also trying, you see the reports, they're trying everything they can to make this team as best as they can. They tried trading for Eric Armstead from the 49ers. That trade fell through. But I mean, every single possible thing they're doing this offseason is showing you we are all in going into next season. Not like Jerry Jones Cowboys all in. The Texans are for real all in this offseason. They're showing you by the moves that they're making. Also, Azeez Al-Shire signing the linebacker to replace Blake Cashman. I mean, an absolute steal, and you're reuniting him with DeMeco Ryans as former defensive coordinator, so you have that continuity with the two. I mean, every addition this offseason has proven why the Texans are one of the teams to beat in the AFC. So with saying all that, with telling you how good the Texans did this offseason, will that translate to wins going into next year? How many games will the Texans win in 2024? Predict it right now down in the comments section. Do you think it's 10? Do you think it's 11, 12, 13? Do they go 17-0 next year? I don't think so. But let me know what you think down in the comment section. How many wins will the Texans get? And the writing was on the wall before this trade even happened. I mean, this was a Twitter exchange from just a couple days ago. Somebody replied to a tweet and says, does Josh Allen even benefit from having a top-tier receiver? Yes. Is he essential to his success? No. Diggs, I think he's been hearing a lot of that. Feels a little bit disrespected by people not only in the media, but maybe Bills fans, people around the Bills organization, because his response was, you sure? You think Josh Allen would still be that guy without me? Let's see if he can do it. Let's see if he's still the quarterback that you think that he is without a top-tier receiver like me. And we'll see if there's any drop-off with Josh Allen going into next year now that he's lost two of his top receivers in Gabriel Davis and Stefon Diggs. Who will he be throwing to next year? Probably a couple of guys in the NFL draft this year, but the Texans, they really benefited from this little spout between Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. Now, I want to hear from everybody at home. How pumped are you? Like the video if you're just excited for this Stefon Diggs trade. If you're excited for Houston Texans football, we were in the basement of the NFL for a couple of seasons. We were the laughingstock of the NFL for many of years. Not anymore. The Texans now are respected. They are feared in the National Football League. Gone are the days where you would wear a Texans jersey out, you would wear a Texans hat out, a Texans hoodie out, and people are like, damn, your team is ass. Not anymore. You can wear that Texans gear with pride. You can go out, wear that Andre Johnson jersey, wear that Texans cap that you have in the back of your closet, because the Texans, they're back and they're here to win a Super Bowl. Super chat coming in from Tevin. Let's freaking go. CJ will have Diggs, Tank, Collins, Schultz, and Mixon coming out the back. If healthy, Baltimore or Houston should be coming out. Houston, let's go. Absolutely love it, and I agree. I mean, now, Baltimore or Houston, I think both those teams could be competing at the top of the AFC. They're both, with their quarterback situation, with their roster situation, should be contenders in the AFC. But don't get it twisted. Everything runs through Kansas City. Everything runs through Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Until they lose, until they're taken down this year, I will not believe that the Texans are favorites ahead of Kansas City until I see it with my own eyes, because they have Patrick Mahomes. And as much as I love CJ Stroud, as much as I think he is going to be a top 5 quarterback next year in the draft, it's Patrick freaking Mahomes. I mean, I think I read something the other day, Colin. Patrick Mahomes, I think, has a winning record when trailing by 10 in National Football League games. I mean, that is an absolute insane stat to have as a quarterback. I mean, absolutely nuts.
Yeah, no, I think I saw the same. I think it's like not even just that he's winning. It's like that he's winning like a lot. It's like 60% of his games that he's winning when he's down by 10 points. So, I mean, clearly, like that's a different level. Like, there's nothing you could say about that. But, I mean, CJ Stroud, like I said, I mean, when's the last time that you can think that a rookie season had the year that CJ Stroud did? I mean, like Baker Mayfield had a nice, really touchdown year. It's like, nah. Andrew Luck led the Colts to, like, the playoffs. It's like,
Probably Andrew Luck, yeah.
Like, CJ Stroud, to me, man, like, you could argue that was the greatest rookie season we've ever seen from a guy that just came into the league. And now you get him a top 5 wide receiver to go along with Tank Dell, to go along with Nico Collins, to go along with Dalton Schultz, to go along with Joe Mixon. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, dude, it doesn't make sense, like, how good this is for the Texans.
It's just pinch me, Colin, because I think I might be dreaming. Gunner with the $5 super chat. Appreciate the support, Gunner. A+. Nick is a competent GM. Can't wait to see the chemistry between CJ and Diggs. Shout out to Jeremy and the team for running my Go-To Texans channel. Shout out to everybody there in the chat. We are 300 strong right now on this Texans Live. Thank you to everybody for clicking into today's video. If you haven't already, go down and hit that sub button. We're trying to get to 13,000 subscribers on the channel. Do it for TJ Yates, the Yates of hell. Help us get to 13K subscribers. I want to show my bosses, I want to show everybody here at Chat Sports, hey, Texans fans are here to stay. They rep H-Town more than anybody reps their team in the National Football League. Go down and prove me right, and go down and hit that sub button. Help us get to 13,000 subscribers. Let's go to a couple of the hashtag Texans that we have as well for some of the questions. Wow.
That's freaking insane, man. Like this one, I think Raul, look at this, man.
Hashtag Texans. Collins, Dell, Diggs, Schultz, Mixon will be catching from CJ Stroud. Let that sink in, baby. Texans swarm, Texans nation. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. It's absolutely amazing. Maybe keep the L3 of the Stefon Diggs trade, and in between we can go to like the trade details and stuff like that as well. Yeah, just because I know some people are clicking in for the first time. They are like, hey, what's going on with the Stefon Diggs trade to the Houston Texans? I mean, Jeremy, you almost got me, Tristan. You almost got me. Let's see. Next one coming in from Brad. He says, I wouldn't doubt us trading up for a defensive player falling in the draft. Now, I don't think they're going to trade back up into the first round. Now, if a guy is there at 30, say 35, 36, 37, like one of the first picks in the second round, the Texans are sitting at 42. I think that's much more doable if they really love a guy and say, he's falling and he's at 38. And they can jump up 4 picks and maybe give up that 6th round pick that they just got in this trade for Stefon Diggs. I mean, I could see the Texans doing that. Trading back up into the 1st round, though, I don't see the Texans doing that or giving up the draft capital to go all the way back up in the 1st round. I actually think it's more likely that the Texans trade back again and get more draft picks going into next year, going into later rounds of this year's draft. I think the Texans are playing the long game, and I think the Texans really trust their scouting department and who they're able to draft in the middle rounds. I mean, they found a diamond in the rough in Tank Dell, maybe the best receiver from last year's draft. I think they really feel confident in their scouting department and this draft class that they have depth and are able to find some more diamonds in the rough. Allen! #Texans. Now that we got Diggs, what should be the main focus in the draft, and do we still need to draft Luke McCaffrey? I actually think this makes it more likely that you draft Luke McCaffrey. Now, hear me out. Before, you were looking at guys like Javon Baker, guys, in Roman Wilson, that you would get in round 2, round 3 of the NFL draft. Now, with the addition of Stefon Diggs, I think this means you could still add a receiver in this year's draft. Do you need to? Not necessarily. You have your top 3 guys. You also re-signed Noah Brown this offseason. You have Robert Woods under contract right now, but like I said, I don't know if he makes it through OTAs in the preseason. And then you have 2 guys who were rookies last year, in John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. So do they need to draft a wide receiver? No, not necessarily. But if they do, I think it could be a guy like Luke McCaffrey in the 5th round, in the 4th round. I could see them going for a guy in the 4th, 5th, 6th round at wide receiver rather than one of the top guys. I think it makes it more likely that you get a guy like Luke McCaffrey compared to a guy like Javon Baker now in the NFL draft. And I think the focus is on defense now. I think the focus is on defense and O-line. If a really good offensive lineman falls to 42, I could see the Texans trying to snag him, a really good interior offensive lineman. I would really love that. Maybe if a Zach Frazier fell to the Texans at 42, another really good interior offensive lineman fell. I think that is a very good possibility for the Texans. If not an offensive lineman, I do think it could be a defensive back, a safety, a linebacker, a defensive lineman, which for the Texans, if you're looking at it, 2 positions that, the top guy could be there for you at 42, linebacker and safety. In most of the mock drafts that I've been doing this offseason, Tyler Nubin, Peyton Wilson have been there at 42 for the Houston Texans. Will that happen on draft day? I don't know. You never know which guys are going to be taken higher in the draft, but if you're sitting there at 42 and you have the best linebacker prospect in the draft or the best safety prospect in the draft, I think you go with one of those guys now. I think you go with either Tyler Nubin or Peyton Wilson at 42. That would make sense. Or if you really like a defensive tackle like a Braden Fisk, like a Devondre Sweat at 42, those could be viable options for the Houston Texans as well. A super chat coming in from Lion Fighter. I'd spend all my picks on the offensive line. And Lion Fighter, I obviously not all the Texans picks, but I mean, I agree. If like I said, if a top offensive lineman is there at 42, even a tackle, because yes, you re-signed Titus Howard to an extension last offseason, but he's been off injured, and he's also played a little bit of guard for you. So could he move to left guard for the Houston Texans? You draft a good right tackle in the draft. I think that's a good possibility for the Texans as well. But like I said, either offensive line or defense is where I think you're going.
LFX! Lion Fighter, let's go!
My guy. Hell yeah. Chase Sr. popping his head in the studio. He heard me say Lion Fighter, and he said, huh? Thank you for the super chat, Lion Fighter. You're a real one. Once again, here are the details for the Stefon Diggs trade.
Huge.
I mean,
Just unbelievable.
every time I see it, I'm thinking Brett or Jack is going to come in and tell me, oh, this is actually a typo. The Texans are giving a first-round pick. Like, that's not correct. But, I mean,
Like
a 2025 second-round pick is absolutely insane for the Texans to give up.
Yeah.
I mean, a second-round pick, not even this year, in next year's draft.
Like, mean, seriously, it's one of those things where we're gonna look back on this trade, and I mean, this could get people fired in Buffalo. I mean, I'm seriously concerned for the people in the front office.
And I know this is a Texans channel, and we're breaking down Stefon Diggs with the Houston Texans, but it makes you wonder now where the Buffalo Bills see themselves as an organization in the AFC. Because I mean, are the Buffalo Bills, are they a contender this year? Are they a team that they're like, hey, we feel like we can compete for a Super Bowl this season? I don't know. Was there something wrong, or what was the deal? Oh, okay. But no, yeah, I really do think now that the Houston Texans got Stefon Diggs, Buffalo Bills, they lost Diggs, they lost Gabriel Davis this offseason. Who is Josh Allen even throwing to now? Are the Bills a top contender in the AFC this year? Oh, go ahead. Matthew Peterson,
Go for it.
host of our Browns channel, host of our Broncos, Falcons. He does everything here.
So vibes are high right now, and they should be, right? This is very exciting. If I may, there are two avenues where I could see this going maybe not as planned.
Okay.
One, I think we can all agree Diggs, like just from a stats perspective, did have a bit of a down year last season compared to previous seasons, right? I mean, there's no argument about that. So maybe he's kind of on the way down. Two, do you buy into him being a little bit of a cancer in the locker room if things aren't going perfect? He had a pretty good setup in Buffalo, and they were winning a lot. They weren't winning, deep into the playoffs as much as they would like to, but it's tough to do that every single year. So are you a little bit nervous that he may not be a perfect fit in the locker room? I don't say this to just ruin everyone's time, but I think those are two legit concerns to have, and maybe that's why the Bills were okay with moving on from him after giving him that huge extension.
I hear you. I agree with that, but my counterpoint would be Stefon Diggs coming to the Houston Texans. They're not going to ask him to be the wide receiver one, and maybe that ruffles his feathers a little bit, but I think his main goal 100% is going to be trying to win a Super Bowl going into next year. When you've been there before, when you've been so close to the mountaintop, when you've been right there and then you have to start over, right there and you have to start over, I think we saw similar shades of this, and I know it's a completely different sport, but with the Houston Rockets against the Golden State Warriors, they eventually had to just say, hey, Chris Paul, we can't run it back again. Even though we've been there 3 times in a row with you and James Harden, the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result. Continuing to think, hey, I could go with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen and hopefully win a Super Bowl. I think that weighs on you as an NFL player. And I think that Stefon Diggs probably saw that and was like, we have been there so many times and not gotten to the Super Bowl that it's starting to get to a point where you can't keep on running back. You need a change of scenery. You need something new to try to break through and make it to a Super Bowl. So I don't see him becoming a cancer. I mean, yes, he's had problems in the offseason. Yes, he's had problems here and there. But, I mean, I think he's a passionate wide receiver. I think, yes, he could come off a little brazen at times. But I do trust DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud to bring in a guy like that and still take control of the locker room and still be like, hey, this is what we're doing as a team. DeMeco Ryans, a former captain in the NFL, a former player, he understands locker room dynamics. He understands different guys in the locker room. I bet you he's played with guys that are just like Stefon Diggs. So he already knows what he's getting into with a guy like Stefon Diggs. So I don't think it's too big of a worry for the Texans bringing on a personality like Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, no, I think the infrastructure is set in Houston. I think they've got a really good thing going there. And I think Stefon Diggs is coming in with the mindset of hey, ultimately things didn't work out the way that I would have liked them to in Buffalo. I'm going to try it out here in Houston. I got a young QB. I got a lot of weapons around me. And that, a lot of the things that, in Buffalo that Stefon Diggs wasn't a fan of, I mean, they don't have that problem in Houston. I mean, they have reliable second, third, fourth options. They have a running game. They have an offensive-minded play caller and Bobby Slowick that's really innovative and really everything. And I think Lion Fighter says it best here. Get this hater out of here. No peeing in our Cheerios. I mean, come on now.
Now,
No bad vibes. Right?
Now I do have to preface everything that he said with he is our Browns host. We did kick their teeth in the postseason, but I know PD probably doesn't take that into account. PD likes to play devil's advocate sometimes in some of these situations, but I mean I actually appreciate it because it would be kind of lame if we were all saying the same thing like Texans are making the Super Bowl next year. You have to have that one contrarian, that one guy who's like, but what if this happens? What if that happens? Because, I mean, I get it. But Lion Fighter, I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate you rocking and rolling with us here on Texans Today. This next one coming in from Tevin once again. Do you think we can get a top corner, safety, or O-line player in the draft now that we've been filling the holes? Corner, no. I don't know who's going to be there at corner for you at 42. I really don't because corner is a hot commodity in this year's draft. And I think there's going to be 5 or 6 that go in the first round. I mean, just off the top of my head, you have Quinyon Mitchell, you have Nate Wiggins, you have Cooper DeJean, you have Terrion Arnold. All guys who could go there in the first round. You also have Kool-Aid McKinstry, TJ Tampa, Ennis Rakestraw. All those guys have been getting first-round buzz going into the first picks in the second round. So I don't know if any of those guys fall to you at 42. If one of those guys does fall to you at 42, I would really like the Texans to take a swing and draft one of those cornerbacks. And going back to a previous question that we had here on the channel, I could see if maybe an Ennis Rakestraw, Kamari Lassiter maybe, fall to like 37, 38, and the Texans want to trade up just a couple picks and maybe give a 5th or 6th round pick to move up a couple spots. I could see them doing that to try to get a really good corner in this year's draft. I think it's much more likely, though, that a top safety or offensive line player falls to you at 42. I already said Tyler Newman could be there for you at 42. If he is, I would really like that pick. Cameron Kitchens, even though he's been going later in drafts, I still think he's a good prospect. If he's there for you with your second pick in the second round, I wouldn't mind a Cameron Kitchens maybe right there in that spot. Also, Jaden Hicks from Washington State has been getting a lot of buzz. Same with Javon Bullard from the University of Georgia. An offensive line, maybe a Zach Frazier, center from West Virginia, falls to you right there. Kingsley, you're going to have to help me with that name once again.
So, oh my God, I have to see it.
The tackle from BYU, yes. He's been named as a guy who could maybe fall to pick 42 for the Houston Texans. I think you're more likely to get a top safety or offensive line prospect at 42 than you are at corner. Sua Mataya. There we go. I think that's more likely, in my opinion, than getting a top corner in this year's draft. This one coming in from Gingy. Hashtag Texans. Jerzon Newton should be our first pick, or Edgerrin Cooper bolster up D-line or linebacker room. Yeah, Jerzon Newton, a.k.a. now he's going by Johnny Newton. Don't know if I like Jerzon or Johnny, but, I mean, it's up to him. He wants to go by Johnny. He was, mocked at the Texans at 23 for a while. Now, seems like the defensive tackle room has been kind of getting pushed back in the draft. I mean, we saw Byron Murphy. He was going a top 15 pick for a month straight, and now the latest mock drafts that I've seen all have Byron Murphy in the 20s. So a guy like Johnny Newton could fall to you at 42. Edgerrin Cooper, I was talking with our Raiders Report host, Mitchell Rins, yesterday about this. I think Edgerrin Cooper could be the Micah Parsons of this year's draft. Not saying that he's as good as Micah Parsons, but he's a linebacker that I could see playing a lot of edge in the National Football League. He can get after the passer. He is a great pass rusher as well as being a linebacker. I could see a team drafting a guy like Edgerrin Cooper and having him be a linebacker and also play a little bit of edge as well. Kind of be a dynamic guy that you can move around the defense. Uber athletic guy out of Texas A&M. I don't know if that's what the Texans need at linebacker per se. I'd much rather go with a guy that can maybe help in coverage a little bit, even though I do like what the Texans have in Christian Harris and Azeez Al-Shire. Those two guys really stand out to me. I'm really wondering how Henry To'oTo'o develops going into year 2. You have a guy like Neville Hewitt who he's a good backup player. He's a special teams, special players kind of guy. But I would say bolster up the D-line linebacker room. Two things the Texans need to do during the draft. If Jerzon Newton's there at 42, Johnny Newton is there at 42, I would 100% run that pick up to the board.
Yeah, because I think, Jerzon Newton, I mean, you know what he's going to be. Johnny Newton, you're right. Johnny Newton. You know what he's going to be in the NFL. He's going to be arguably the best nose tackle playing that 3 technique. And he's going to fill a need for the Texans right away. Edgerrin Cooper, I mean, we did the video yesterday, has 101 quarterback rating in coverage allowed against him during passes and stuff. Like, that's not his strength. So, I mean, if you sit there and, put him on the edge and you put him in, like, a pass rushing situation, it's not really what he played in college. Doesn't mean he can't be successful for it, but, like, I'd rather go with the surefire thing, at least in my opinion, and roll with Johnny Newton.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Edgerrin Cooper could develop into a really good pass rusher. Like I said, I could see him being like a Micah Parsons type player coming out of the draft this year. Next question coming in from Isaac C. 120 Texans. We did need a veteran wide receiver, so I like the pick. For sure, just shows you what this team mindset is, and that's a Super Bowl. I completely agree. Yeah. And I also don't mind getting an older receiver in Stefon Diggs, who, I mean, in all accounts, last year had a down year. But if we want to look at his stats the past 4 seasons, Cullen, one more time. Yeah. For a down year for Stefon Diggs, let me pull it up. I'm going to show you the numbers for a down year for Stefon Diggs. And you tell me if you would take a down Stefon Diggs for the Houston Texans. Because it's not bad at all. A down year for Stefon Diggs is 107 receptions, 1,183 yards, 11.1 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns. Is a down year for Stefon Diggs. I would take a down year for Stefon Diggs. Give me down year Stefon Diggs right now. I'll take 2 down year Stefon Diggs. Please. 2 for 1. I would take that. I would take a down year Stefon Diggs because he's more than likely not going to catch number 1 cornerbacks on other teams. And if he does, then even better. It's worth the money if he is going against the number 1 corners for other teams. Because then that means Nico Collins and Tank Dell can eat against their corner 2 and corner 3. So it really is pick your poison. Because if you're like, hey, Stefon Diggs, he's having somewhat of a down year, he can still cook cornerback 2, cornerback 3s in this league. He is still a good route runner, a good wide receiver, a reliable pass catcher of the football. So I would definitely take a down year Stefon Diggs if I'm the Houston Texans.
Let's name it out, right? Okay. Receivers you would take over Stefon Diggs right now. I mean, you've probably got Justin Jefferson, respectfully.
Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill.
You would probably put. I mean, would
Garrett
you say
Wilson? I think.
Would you think Devontae Adams would be above there?
Devontae Adams would be above him.
Would you say Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, I would take Cooper Kupp over him right now. I mean, right now, is Stefon Diggs a top 10 wide receiver, in my opinion? No. I think he's fallen out of that bit. But is he still a guy who, for a wide receiver, which everybody's saying Nico Collins is a wide receiver 1, which I agree. He's an ascending wide receiver. Tank Dell showed you a lot in a rookie year to give you promise, give you hope that he can develop into a really good receiving threat as well. Even if you have a top 30 receiver as your 3rd option, yeah. I mean, at this point, I might, where their careers are going over the next 3 years, I would take Nico Collins over Stefon Diggs.
I mean, here, let's pull up their stat comp real quick.
Yeah. Their stats last year.
I mean,
Nico Collins, definitely more of a downfield threat than Stefon Diggs. He had 27 less catches and 100 more yards than Stefon Diggs last year. Definitely a down-the-field threat is Nico Collins. And I would take Nico Collins over Stefon Diggs as it takes right now. Let me know down in the comment section, who do you think gets more catches next year? Do you think it's Nico Collins or do you think it's Stefon Diggs? Type NC for Nico Collins, SD for Stefon Diggs. I do think I would still take Nico Collins over him, but Stefon Diggs is the best number 3 receiver in the league.
By far.
And if not him, Tank Dell is the best number 3 receiver in the league, in my opinion. Either way, a 1-2-3 punch, I don't think you can tell me another team that has a better top 3. Maybe if you're saying duos, I could see maybe an A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, or if you're talking, I don't know, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins if he stays with the Bengals next season. Yes, those could be better top 2 options, but if you're telling me like if 3 receivers on any team, I think the Texans have the top 3-person unit in the National Football League right now.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I mean, I can't even think of who would be second. Because, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's the Eagles with Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, but then who's their third? You know, it's, you know, 49ers have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and then who? You know, it's one of those things where I think you look at the 3 wide receiver unit of all NFL teams, I think the Texans have it clear and away the number 1 wide receiver room in the NFL. And when you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud, I mean, what more can you ask for?
I mean, you are giving this young man everything he needs to succeed. You set up a trust fund for this kid. You gave him everything he needed to succeed in life. Now it's on CJ Stroud to show up this next season, to even get better, to build on that rookie season that he had, to play even at a higher level than he did last year, because the Texans have done everything they possibly can to make this a prolific offense around CJ Stroud. I mean, like I've said, they've shown you in the moves that they've made, and they've even shown you in the moves that they weren't able to pull off, that they are trying as hard as they can to make this offense as good as they can around CJ Stroud. I mean, they swung and missed on Saquon Barkley. They swung and missed on Keenan Allen, 2 guys that are really good players at their respective positions. They went out and got a Joe Mixon and a Stefon Diggs, which I don't know. I mean, which one would you rather take, Saquon Barkley and Keenan Allen, or Stefon Diggs and Joe Mixon? But also, with that, they were willing to spend the money on those guys, but maybe a blessing in disguise that they end up getting better deals for those other 2 guys. You know, they're paying Joe Mixon less than they would have been paying Saquon Barkley. Will Barkley's production really prove to be that much better than Joe Mixon's this year? They ended up giving a 2nd-round pick next year for Stefon Diggs, where I believe the Keenan Allen trade was just a 4th-round pick this year, PD, for Keenan?
I think it was
a 5th?
5th, okay,
A 5th-round pick this year for Keenan Allen. Maybe a somewhat equal trade-off there, but you still aren't giving a ton for another great wide receiver. A fourth. Yeah, I thought it was a 4th-round pick for Keenan Allen this year, which I'd rather give up a 2nd next year or a 4th this year. I mean, if you're trying to win this year, I'd rather give up a 2nd next year than a 4th this year, because you're getting impact guys that could help your team win this season. So I think both those situations, the Texans, they swung and they missed, but they still came out on top with the end result and what they were able to get.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, I think I would take Stefon Diggs over Keenan Allen at this point. I mean, both are still really productive receivers this late into their respective careers, but I think Stefon Diggs still commands that number 1 wide receiver attention. Now, obviously, we'll see how it works with him in this new offense and everything, but I think when you have a chance to get a guy like this, when you have the situation you have with CJ Stroud and this offense and this whole team, you just go out and do it. You'll figure out the financials later. You'll figure out, the draft compensation. You just get it done. And ultimately, that's what the Texans did. And this what honestly really showed me was they have full faith in CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans, and this whole unit. And that's, what more can you ask for? That's what you want from any organization. That's what any belief. And now that's going to add extra confidence to this group going into next season. I expect them to come out firing on all cylinders with something to prove.
Couldn't have said it any better myself, Colin. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Let's go to Brad, and then if we don't get any more super chats, then we'll probably head out here in the next 5-10 minutes, clear up some studio space for maybe the next breaking trade that happens here at Chat Sports. But this question from Brad, he says, #Texans, the draft is so heavy offensively. There will be an elite defensive player who drops down, and we will trade up to snag them. That's kind of what I said. If there's a guy in the mid-30s that is falling that the Texans have really high up their draft boards, that they're like, we think this guy can produce this season, can be a impact guy, I could 100% see the Texans trading up from 42 to the mid-30s. I don't think they would trade back into the first round. I think it's a little bit too much draft capital for them to give up now and possibly in the future. But never say never depending on who falls down in the draft. Say, crazily, Byron Murphy is there at pick 31 or something. The Texans are like, he's our top defensive tackle on the board.
We're taking it.
I'm going to trade up for him right now.
Yeah.
So something like that could very well happen. That's why you got to hit that sub button, and that's why you got to join the fastest growing Texans community on YouTube in Texans today. Go down and hit that sub button. Free Texans videos all year long. I'm going to be coming out with more videos this coming week on the implications of the Stefon Diggs trade. I mean, I definitely a mock draft after Stefon Diggs trade. Other, free agent options after the Stefon Diggs trade. And, I mean, very exciting. Very exciting for this team. Another super chat coming in from Lion Fighter. Let's go.
Shout out.
Shout out to the guy. He says, Bulls on parade. Super hyped for the season. You guys are awesome. Keep up the great works. LFX. Yeah. Petey loves that. Petey loves when I do the CJ Stroud. He gets it. He gets it. All right, let's hit a sub, and then let's probably dip out of here unless,
like I said,
forever hold your peace.
I'm about to say, you can super chat. You want to keep us live. I mean, we do got to get back to work, but if we keep getting super chats, we'll stay live. We'll keep talking this trade. We'll keep talking what it means for the Texans, the rest of the NFL. But yeah, you got to send those supers in.
Gotta get it going. Gotta get it going. And one more time, we went live today for the Stefon Diggs trade to the Houston Texans. And we're just showing you that we are the #1 Texans channel on YouTube. A reason why you got to hit that sub button. Join the fastest growing community of Texans fans on YouTube. I am a kid from Houston. I was born and raised in South Houston, League City area. So help a kid out. Help me grow this channel into one of the best channels we have here at Chat Sports. I started doing this channel probably a year ago, and the amount that we've grown in that year is just amazing to see the amount that we've been able to do here on Texans Today. We've been able to do more videos. We've been able to do some more watch parties, more live shows, and that's because of you guys at home hitting that sub button and helping me out, supporting the channel. So if you haven't already, go down and hit that sub button. If you have Texans friends, Texans family that don't know about the channel, maybe send them one of my videos. Say, hey, check this guy out. He's a kid from Houston, breaking down Houston Texans news and rumors all year long. Appreciate everybody who was here in the chat. Isaac C., David Williams, David Dodd, Lion Fighter, SB, Tevin Boss, Pancake Gaming, Ethan Hong, Tristan, who I think I'll just say it because he said he's going to comment. Actually, no, I won't. Tristan, I won't say it. Keep it up. Keep it. You comment on every one of my videos. Maybe I'll say it one day. Maybe I'll say it one day for the right super chat number. Right now, I'm going to keep that one in the bank. That Texans fan, Forever Royal, Sean Rodriguez, everybody, Micah King, everybody that joined today's chat, I really do appreciate you. Thank you for joining me for this joyous occasion. The Texans trading for Bills receiver Stefon Diggs. I'll be breaking down more about the trade, more about the implications throughout this week. So stay tuned and make sure to hit that subscribe button.